Hello and welcome to another lesson of No Stress Distressings. This is the 6th lesson, and today we'll be covering embossing resist, the simple basic step that we're going to use right now, and we're going to build on it in future lessons. So I actually have two projects that I want to show you today. They're just both slight different variations of the same project, but I wanted to show you the difference so that you would know for future use. The first one that I'm going to do, I'm going to start out with this piece of vintage cream cardstock that's cut down to 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches, and that's just the standard size card with 1/2 inch taken off each side. That way it will mat nicely on our card. And I'm going to start off by inking up this stamp from Hero Arts. This is called the Daisy Outline Pattern. With some Versamark ink, which is the best sticky ink for embossing. And they also make refills for the pad too, so you can get a lot of use out of the same pad. And I actually just refilled this so it's extra sticky, and that's exactly what you need for embossing. You can also use pigment ink. Anything that doesn't dry very quickly would work for embossing, including Distress inks, but Distress inks do dry a lot faster than Versamark or another very sticky ink, so you have to work very fast. So I usually just stick to Versamark. There we go. So I've inked up my background stamp, which, by the way, you could use any background stamp for this, or even just an image and repeat it across your card. And the less detailed the stamp is, the better it works. So this one has really bold lines, so that works a lot better than, say, a text stamp would. But you could also try it. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try. Sometimes the results are exactly what you want. So as you can see, I'm just holding down with one hand and pressing down with the other, making sure I have all parts of my card covered. That's probably the hardest part about this technique. I'm just going to peel it. And now it's time to apply my embossing powder. This is Zing Clear. It comes in this kind of container. I actually have 2 bottles of it in here, just because I like to have a lot of embossing powder to work with. And you don't waste any because it falls just right back into the container. So, get this covered. And then, once it looks like everything's been covered, I'm just going to pick it up right here and then just flick it once, a couple times, to get off the excess powder. So I'm going to use my embossing gun, and I'm just going to go over it until it looks like all of it is melted, and you can no longer see any grains of the embossing powder left. And I'll speed this up and turn down the sound. Okay, so I have my card, and while it's still hot, you can kind of bend it a little bit to keep the card from warping. When you use really thick cardstock like this, it's usually not much of a problem. What I'm going to do next is take my protective sheet here, and I'm using 3 colors: Milled Lavender, Victorian Velvet, and Dusty Concord. And I'm going to use all 3 of these colors. To save time, though, with the Milled Lavender, since it's so light, I'm actually just going to rub it over the surface of the image to add as much color on here as I can before I go in with a blending tool, because I really love this color, but it's so light and it takes me forever to cover the entire image with it because you have to go back with several coats. So now I just have a lot of ink on this image, including there is some ink on the embossed part, but it rubs off very easily. And I'm just using that ink to go back with my blending tool and really work in this color. Okay, so So I have that. You can see I bent the paper a little bit here, but that's okay. You won't be able to tell on the finished card. Next I'm going back with the Victorian Velvet and starting in from the edges and working towards the middle, and this will give me some more depth and definition in my image. So now that I have that looking how I want it, I'm just going to go back with the Dusty Concord, which is the darkest purple, and it's by far much darker than the Milled Lavender, so you need to have a light hand with this. And I'm not even applying any pressure at all, I'm just holding onto it, and I'm working over the edges. And this will keep it from looking too harsh. If you press down really hard, it would leave a harsh line where the ink had been. So I have all that purple, and this is my finished resist image. So you can see that all of the embossing powder has resisted the ink. And just to make it a little bit shinier and to get rid of that extra ink, I'm going to go over just with a regular Kleenex and take off that extra ink. And you can tell there is some on the embossing. So there we have it, and you have all that extra ink taken off, and now you're ready to assemble your card. So I'm going to move right into the next little section though that I have for you. And I just wanted to show you what it is like to use pattern paper with this technique, because you can create some really cool things with that. I've chosen a really detailed pattern paper that once a lot of it's covered up, it will still have a cool pattern. You probably won't be able to tell that it's flowers, but that's okay. We're going for experimental here. And this is from the Wisteria paper pad from Basic Grey, which is one of my all-time favorite collections from Basic Grey. I just love these colors. So, what I'm going to do is actually going to put this behind it. And I'm going to stamp with this heart-winged butterfly from Hero Arts all over the background. So I'm creating my own background stamp, basically. And I'm using Versamark, of course. And the trick with this is to remember where you just stamped. And if all else fails, just stamp it all over and kind of go with the fact that some of them will overlap, which might be what I end up doing. And you can kind of see the ink if you turn it to the side. Not really. Okay, so we're just going to hope that it looks good. And I'm going to go back over with some clear embossing powder. I've stamped the heart-winged butterfly about 5 times. And hopefully I didn't get it in the same place twice, but if it did, that's not a big deal either. Alright, as I turn it to the side, I can see that it looks like everything should turn out pretty okay. So I'm just going to tap off that extra powder and then emboss it really quickly and see what we have here. So next what I'm going to do is just apply Distress ink pretty much exactly like I showed you before, using Tumbled Glass, Stormy Sky, and Faded Jeans. And as you can see, I have my inkers on top of them. And I'm just going to start out with my lightest color. And this is really cool because you will see the image reveal itself as you apply the ink. And I'm planning on making this very dark because I want the butterflies to really shine on this. And you will be able to see some of the pattern showing through on the blue. You know what, I decided we don't need Tumbled Glass. It doesn't really show up on this. So we're just going to skip right to the Stormy Sky. I can always go back and add more dark colors if I want, but this, yes, this will give us the effect we want. So you can already see the butterfly appearing. It's pretty magical. So we've applied my Stormy Sky, and now I'm going to go back with my faded jeans. And I'm going to cover most of this with the darker blue, just because it'll really make these images pop. And now I'm just going to go back with the faded jeans again and really make sure that the edges are nice and inked up very well. Here we go. And you can still see the pattern through, but what really shines are the butterflies, and that cool kind of flowery pattern shows through. So, these are my two cards, or these are the two starts of my cards, and I'm going to make these up into cards and then have the end shot at the video. So this is basic embossing resist. I just used some clear ink, or some clear watermark Versamark, and some clear embossing powder, and just a little bit of distress ink to create these amazing and different looking looks. Both are the same technique, just using different stamps. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. And here is the finished flower card and the close-up. And here's the finished butterfly card and the close-up of that. So thanks again for watching, and I will catch you again next time on No Stress Distressings.